Every beat starts the same way, not with sound, not with instruments, but with an idea, a feeling, a mood, something that cannot yet be heard, but can already be imagined. And that is where this process begins, from absolute silence, because before any beat exists, there is nothing, no rhythm, no melody, no structure, just intention. And in music production, intention is everything, because tools do not create music, ideas do. So when we talk about how a beat is created from scratch, we are not just talking about software. We are talking about decision making, layer by layer, sound by sound, moment by moment. And the first decision is always the foundation, tempo, because tempo determines emotional energy. A slower tempo creates space, a more relaxed atmosphere, a sense of weight and reflection. A faster tempo creates urgency, energy, movement, drive. And before any sound is placed, the tempo sets the emotional direction of everything that follows. Now, once tempo is established, the next step is the rhythmic foundation, the drum pattern. Because drums are not just percussion, they are structure. They define movement. They create the skeleton of the entire beat. Kick drums establish impact. Snares create timing reference points. Hi-hats add motion and texture. Each element plays a role in shaping rhythm perception. And even before melody exists, the brain already begins to interpret groove. Now, when building from scratch, producers often start with a simple kick pattern, something minimal, something repetitive, not complex, because complexity comes later, foundation comes first, and that foundation must feel stable, not overwhelming, just consistent. Once the kick pattern is in place, the snare or clap is added. This creates contrast, because rhythm is not just about sound, it is about space between sounds. Silence is just as important as noise. And in music production, silence defines timing. Now the hi-hats are introduced, and this is where movement begins. Hi-hats create energy within the beat. Even when everything else is minimal, they add texture, flow, and rhythmic detail. At this stage, the beat is still simple, but it already has identity because rhythm alone can communicate emotion. Now, once the drum foundation is stable, the next layer is bass, and bass is where depth is created. Because bass connects rhythm to emotion, it fills low frequencies, it gives weight to movement, it creates physical presence. Without bass, a beat feels empty. With bass, it feels alive. And bass is not random, it follows rhythm, it reinforces structure, it supports kick placement. So when bass is added correctly, the beat starts to feel complete in its lower energy range. Now we move into melody, and melody is where emotional storytelling begins, because while drums create movement, melody creates feeling, and feeling is what people remember. Melody can be simple or complex, but in modern beat production, simplicity often works best. A short piano loop, a synth pattern, a sampled sound, something that repeats but evolves slightly, because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates emotional connection. Now, when building a melody from scratch, producers often start with chords, because chords define emotional tone. Major chords feel bright, minor chords feel emotional or dark, suspended chords create tension, and the combination of these shapes the mood of the beat. Once chords are established, melodic elements are layered on top. This could be a lead synth, a piano motif, a guitar sample, or even a vocal chop. Each layer adds dimension, but the key is balance, because too many melodic elements create clutter, and clutter reduces emotional clarity, so decisions must be intentional. Now let's talk about sound selection, because sound choice is one of the most important parts of beat creation. Even if rhythm and melody are correct, bad sound selection can weaken the entire composition. Producers often spend significant time choosing sounds that match the emotional direction of the beat. Warm sounds for emotional beats, sharp sounds for energetic beats, soft textures for ambient beats, and each sound is chosen not just for tone, but for how it fits within the frequency spectrum. Now, once the main elements are in place, drums, bass, melody, the beat enters arrangement stage. And arrangement is where structure becomes storytelling, because a beat is not just loops repeating endlessly, it is a journey: intro, build-up, drop, variation, breakdown, return. Each section serves a purpose. The intro introduces atmosphere, the build-up creates anticipation, the drop delivers impact, the breakdown adds contrast, and the final section resolves the energy. Even in instrumental beats, structure creates emotional movement. Now let's talk about transitions, because transitions are what make a beat feel professional. Without transitions, changes feel abrupt. With transitions, changes feel intentional. These can include effects like risers, reverse sounds, impact hits, filter sweeps, and subtle automation changes. Each transition guides the listener through the beat without breaking flow. Now we move into mixing, and mixing is where clarity is created. Because at this stage, all elements exist, but they compete for space. So mixing is about balance: volume adjustment, frequency separation, stereo placement, and dynamic control. Each sound must have its own space: kick in the low end, vocals or leads in the mid-range, hi-hats in the high range. When frequencies overlap too much, the beat becomes muddy. When they are separated properly, the beat becomes clear. Now, let's talk about effects processing. Reverb adds space, delay adds depth, compression controls dynamics, equalization shapes tone. Each tool is used not to change the beat, but to refine it, to make it sound cohesive, professional, polished. Now we enter the final stage: mastering. Mastering is the final polish. It ensures the beat translates well across all systems: headphones, speakers, phones, car audio. It increases loudness without distortion, balances final frequencies, and ensures consistency. Now, at this point, the beat is no longer just an idea, it is a finished product. But what is most interesting is not the technical process, it is the transformation, because what started as silence is now structure, emotion, movement, energy, a complete sonic experience created from nothing. And that is the real power of beat production: not just tools, not just software, but decisions layered over time. Now, let's zoom out. Because every beat follows a similar journey, even if styles differ, even if genres change, the core process remains the same: silence becomes rhythm, rhythm becomes structure, structure becomes emotion, emotion becomes music, and music becomes experience. But what beginners often miss is this: a beat is not built all at once. It is built in stages. Each stage requires focus. Each stage requires restraint. And each stage requires understanding of what to add and what to leave out. Because sometimes the most important decision in production is what you choose not to include. Now let's connect everything. From scratch, a beat begins with nothing. Then tempo defines direction, drums create structure, bass adds depth, melody adds emotion, arrangement adds storytelling, mixing adds clarity, mastering adds final polish. And together, these layers transform silence into sound. But the most important truth is this: a beat is not just assembled, it is shaped. And shaping requires intention. Because anyone can place sounds on a timeline, but not everyone can make those sounds feel connected, feel purposeful, feel alive. And that is what separates basic beats from professional production: not equipment, not software, but understanding. Understanding how sound behaves, how emotion translates into frequency, and how structure guides listener experience. So when you hear a finished beat, what you are really hearing is not just audio. You are hearing a sequence of decisions, layered carefully, refined repeatedly, and built from silence into something expressive. And that is how a beat is truly created from scratch, not in one moment, but in stages, each one building on the last, until nothing remains of the original silence except transformation.